We're on the record.
Okay. Call the Township Council meeting of February 18th, 2020 to order.
Posting of notice. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided in accordance with the requirements of the Open Public Meetings Law by filing the notice in the office of the Township Clerk and by posting the meeting notice on the bulletin board at the Municipal Building on December the 18th, 2019, where it has remained posted since that date. A legal notice appeared in the Daily Record and the Newark Star Ledger on December the 23rd, 2019, and was forwarded by fax to other local newspapers and local radio stations on December the 18th, 2019. Council meetings are videotaped and aired on Public Access Channel 21 at 7 p.m. Sundays and Wednesdays, and are also available for viewing at www.parsippany.net.
Would you all join me in a flag salute?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mr. Carriffy?
Here.
Ms. Grignani?
Present.
Ms. McCarthy?
Here.
Ms. Peterson?
Here.
Mr. DePiero?
Here.
Also in attendance are Business Administrator Keith Kasmark, CFO Ann Clucci, Township Attorney Jim Lott, Township Clerk Colette Madden, Council President. We have a quorum. You may begin.
Thank you. Upcoming meetings, March 3rd, 2020 at 7 p.m. Agenda meeting. March 17th, 2020 at 7 p.m. Our regular meeting. Approval of minutes. Agenda meeting of 2/4/2020. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Make a motion.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Carriffy, seconded by Ms. Grignani. Roll call. Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, presentations and reports. The mayor's not here. Township Council, we have one replacement for the advisory committee, Mrs. Grignani.
Approval of Recreation Advisory Committee member. It's a 3-year term for Ricardo Ballesteros.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Motion made by Ms. Grignani, seconded by Mr. Carriffy. Roll call. Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Clerk Madden, would you please remove the member that is on the committee at the present time? His term is up. And would you please notify Mr. Ballesteros that he is on this committee?
Absolutely will do, council member.
Thank you.
I believe it's T. Benedetto, that's the member that's no longer there.
That is correct.
Okay, I have a statement to read. This is in response to the mayor's State of the Town address that he gave on Friday, February 7th. I don't know how many of you that heard that, but his speech was filled with gloom and doom, which he blamed on everybody but himself. He blamed the zoning board, he blamed the township council, he blamed the previous administration. He was setting us up for a huge increase in taxes that he will propose in 2020 budget that he will claim no responsibility for. We made him do it. In the mayor's first term, he inherits many things that he has no control over. So he can blame everything that is not right on the previous council and administration. He is, in essence, on his honeymoon. In the mayor's second year, that budget is his. He is accountable to the community for tax increases, services to the community, and employee morale. In the mayor's third year, we are way past hearing that the mayor is digging out of a financial mess that he inherited. First, let's address the mayor's criticism of the zoning board. He correctly points out that the Township Council appoints all members of the zoning board. He fails to mention that he appoints all members of the planning board, except me. He claims that the zoning board approves too many applications. He insultingly calls them the Board of Yes. He has proudly recommended that the Township Council pass a development accountability ordinance that would allow any resident to ask the council to overturn a decision of the zoning board. The mayor's recommendation is wrong on so many levels. First of all, the zoning board and the planning board are by law autonomous bodies. The mayor and the council cannot interfere with any application that is before them. Both bodies have the benefit of an attorney, a planner, and an engineer to assure that the applicant's application is sound and assure that the boards operate within the land use laws and the township ordinances. Both boards consist of township residents who are volunteers and who want what is best for our township. Although the mayor is a member of the planning board, he does not attend any of their meetings. He instead has delegated his responsibility to another. He therefore has no idea how many applications are approved by the planning board. Since I have served on the planning board for most of the past 25 years, I can inform him that the percentages of applications approved by the planning board and the zoning board are pretty similar, by my estimation. By the way, for the 12 years that Mimi Letts was mayor, she never missed a planning board meeting. Oh, by the way, when Mimi Letts was mayor for 12 years, she had two budgets that were a zero increase in municipal taxes, so that is not uncommon either. Bottom line, the mayor's recommendation is foolish, and his ordinance should be defeated. That's the first ordinance on our agenda tonight. Now let's address the financial mess that the mayor refers to. First of all, the hiring practices of this mayor are outrageous. Additional staff, new political patronage positions at outrageous salaries, some of which have no job descriptions. In the mayor's first year, I calculated $550,000 in salary, pension, and benefit costs for those positions that I felt were unnecessary. This mayor has been critical of the previous mayor for using surpluses generated by the sewer treatment plant and the water department utilities, although he has done the same thing. There is a major difference between what James Barbario did and what Michael Soriano has done. Jamie only took the surplus that could be replenished in the following year. Jamie never allowed the utility fund balance to fall below that critical amount. Michael Soriano has disregarded that fund balance to the point that we will need an increase in sewer and water fees. This mayor has also been critical of the Township Council for cutting his budget. He is also blaming us for future tax increases. The bottom line here is fund balance for the current budget and utility budgets is the mayor's responsibility. When the Township Council cuts some expense items in that budget to lower taxes, those expense items do not affect the fund balance. For many years, Mayor Soriano Parsippany enjoyed many accolades from Money Magazine and others touting Parsippany is the best place to live in New Jersey and 13th in the nation. We also enjoyed a very good bond rating. What we hear now is gloom and doom mixed with large tax increases. What has changed? We got a new mayor. And that ends my statement. That's my response to the mayor's address last week. And now back to the agenda. Township Attorney.
Thank you, Council President.
Since many of these people are here for the lake associations, maybe we should address that those are private organizations?
Right, I understand that there have been some concerns raised about some recent judicial decisions involving lake associations. Those matters are between private parties and are a function of state law. Mayor and council doesn't have any jurisdiction over those issues.
You can still speak, but we cannot take any legal action on your behalf, whether you're for the assessments or against them. Unfortunately, they're private associations.
Council President, just want to inform the public, after that, you guys, as he stated, you can come up to the mic, you'll get 5 minutes to state your concerns, but, you know, what's been addressed has been addressed here today.
And Council President, if I may, I just want to go on record that saying that the administration has met with 2 of the lake associations and people on both sides of this issue. We have also been in touch multiple times with the governor's office and with the legislative team in our district to discuss possible legislative solutions to this issue. We have even gone so far as to try to arrange a meeting between the leadership of some of the concerned parties with the governor's office, and that meeting at this time is still pending, but we are trying to arrange that in the near future.
I have also spoken to representatives from the lake associations on both sides of this issue, and I'll just throw this out there at the end of the discussions that we have had. Those homes that were purchased, that there's nothing in their deed, they were not notified that they should be paying dues, and that's the grounds that they stand on. One proposal is a long-term solution is that maybe these associations set something up so that when homes are turned over, someone new buys it, they will know that in the future they will be obligated to pay an assessment. No? Well, it's a suggestion that was discussed by some of the people. You can still all come up and speak. Okay, Business Administrator, was that your?
No, that was my piggybacking off of the attorney's report.
Okay.
Item D, under the administrator's
Hello.
report.
Not yet.
No,
Oh.
I will open to the public late and
Oh.
at the right time.
Okay, thank you.
Through you, Council President, just to bring the council up to speed on the budget process, which you referred to earlier. We just finished the annual financial statement for the township last week, and we are now taking that and facilitating through to finalize the budget proposals process, which we started in October by meeting with the various department and division heads in the township. We have already made some preliminary cuts to what those requests were. And I'm hopeful that at the March 3rd meeting, we'll be prepared to present the budget to the council.
Okay, thank you. I guess at our next meeting, then, we will set some dates. Everybody bring your calendars. We'll set some dates for budget meetings.
Right. And I, through you, Council President, I shared some thoughts with that, with the budget schedule with the clerk. So maybe he can even share that with you before we gather for the next meeting.
So what I'll do is I'll send an email out tomorrow morning with the tentative dates that were given to me by the business administrator, and then you guys can take a look and if
See what
they
works.
Yeah. Now, really, very quickly, just want to make an announcement to the public. Do understand there's a lot of people here, but for the safety of the residents and everyone here, we ask that the individuals who are standing, one, not block the entrances, and if you can just wait in the hallway so as to not, just in case if we have an emergency, we're able to evacuate. But we cannot have you guys standing over there blocking that door.
There are some more seats.
There's
More
seats
people
up.
can sit up front here. There are some seats up here.
Okay, continuing, Township Clerk, your turn.
No report at this time, Council President. Thank you.
Thank you. Township Officers, Committees, and Reports.
Not at this time.
Okay.
I'm gonna go.
Bids taken on 1/22/20, Knoll West Country Club Irrigation System Replacement rebid. On 1/30/20, new one boat 1660 CB or approved equivalent for 2 rescue boats, trailer, and accessories for the Parsippany Rescue and Recovery Squad. Bids to be taken, 21920 Greenbank Road Safety and Improvements Project, 1920 reconstruction of various streets. Okay, now I'll entertain a motion to open the meeting to the public.
Make a motion.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Carriffy, seconded by Ms. Grignani. Roll call, Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
The floor is open to the public. You can come up to the mic, state your name, and you can speak on any matter.
Yes, sign in, state your name and address for the record, and you have 5 minutes.
Hi again, Walt Wellens from Drumlin Drive in Glacier Hills. I was here at the last council meeting to discuss my water drainage issue. And since then, I found out there was a meeting between some people on the council and Justin, the town engineer. And I was just curious if anything came of that meeting that I should know about.
Through you, Council President, if I may. I mentioned to the gentleman before the meeting, I did have a meeting with Justin Lizza, our township engineer. He identified the problem, well aware of it. From there, what our plan is in the next 10 days to set up a meeting with the superintendent from the Board of Education along with the building and grounds manager to discuss the issue. Justin does have some ideas on how they could maintain it and also possibly some infrastructure improvements too that might improve the situation for you and your neighbors. As I promised you before the meeting, I will come out before the end of this week, walk the property with you personally, and then we'll subsequently set up that meeting with the Board of Ed.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
That's all I have.
Thank you.
Mary Przicki, 273 Marcella Road in Lake Parsippany. I'd like to just pass out things to the council, to all of them.
Maybe I'm just kidding.
Okay, I'll wait until you get those. Oh, but my 5 minutes is going by. I forgot about that. Okay, you know, we've been ongoing with this problem of assessments for the past 3 years. Yes, we took it to court, and yes, we lost. And yes, I understand that you people can't make any kind of decisions or comments or whatever, but I think that we are residents of Parsippany, and we live in this township, and you should be aware of what is going on in your areas. Now, how would you like to get an invoice that's in front of you? How would you like to get that and not know what it is, okay? There'll be people here in the audience who say, oh yeah, they knew everything, but they didn't, because there's 2,200 residents in Lake Parsippany, and of them, only 106 got to vote on this issue of assessments, okay? There's when it comes to economic issues in Parsippany, as far as residents, we can go from middle income to low income to people who are in need. And you'd see that if you look at your HUD grant applications and you go over to the Senior Citizen Center and find out. We have widows here that are under the poverty level, and they get an invoice like that, okay? That tells them that they have to pay $230 by March the 31st. And if it's not paid by March the 31st, you'll get fined on April the 1st $100. And if you don't have that kind of money, guess what happens to you? You get a lien on your little house, and you're making $15,000 and $17,000 a year their incomes are. And they're expected to pay an assessment that when you bought your house, you didn't know about. That's what all the Trenton amendments are about. You did your due diligence. You asked the realtor. You asked the realtor asked the associations I'm talking about Rainbow Lakes too, okay? Same thing. You have your title searches, and you think, I'm moving into Lake Parsippany, and I'm moving into Parsippany for what? For my kids' better education, because we do have such a good school system, and the fact that it's affordable. And now you get hit with an assessment that you don't even know about. But you were supposed to do your due diligence, because it said you have the right in common with others to use the waters of Lake Parsippany for bathing, boating, and fishing. And down the line, you might have to pay an assessment. You were supposed to know that from language of 1933, when it's not even in my deed. You did everything you could. And the state of New Jersey comes along in 2017, and they make this Radburn law, and all of a sudden, we're a common interest community. 1933, that word didn't even exist. They came here, the developers, in 1933 for one reason. The farms were going bankrupt, and they wanted to develop the land. They didn't even know what a common interest community was. But now, all of a sudden, we do, and we are stuck with that fee.
1 minute.
1 minute. 1 minute. Do you know how many people come and call me up and come to my house because they can't understand that invoice? They don't even know how much they have to pay because it says $430, and it's not that if you take the basic fee. But if you take the basic fee, you lose your constitutional right to vote. You have nothing to say. Nothing. Nothing. And I want you to be aware and maybe help us get to Trenton, to talk to the people who are higher up and do something for the people of Parsippany in Lake Parsippany, so that maybe it will be then called the best place to live. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
In this bill.
No, but they should.
Interesting.
Yeah. It says right here, the senior membership is $285.
Sharon Jacobs, 16 Ivy Lane, Rainbow Lakes. I'm going to just add to what Mary had to say. Thank you for meeting with us. We need to have a meeting with someone in Trenton. We need your help. I am one of 31, my husband and I, of 31 homeowners in Rainbow Lakes that has a lien on our property. My husband and I moved there 35 years ago. We did our due diligence. I asked if we needed to be a member of the lake. They said no, it was a voluntary membership. There is nothing in my deed, there is nothing in their master deed, and there is nothing in anyone's chain of title that lives in Rainbow Lakes, to my knowledge. Right now, we are up to $2,000, what we owe, because we didn't pay. Attorney's fees, late fees, the liens, we're up to $2,000. We wanted to go before a judge, but what this group of trustees did was they changed their bylaws. They did not register their bylaws. They did not take us to small claims court. I wanted to go before a judge along with my neighbors. We wanted a judge to decide this, but they did it in an unethical way. We need your help, not just in Rainbow, in Lake Parr. This attorney has attacked so many lake communities in this state, but she hit home. Someone in our community, in the trustees department of the Rainbow Lakes community, has informed realtors to advertise us as a homeowners association with a homeowners fee. We are not a homeowners association, but yet on the listings it lists homeowners association fee. So they're following the Predfida law, but they're not. We don't come under the Predfida law. Seniors, widow and widowers, and disabled people It could be any one of you, but it's us. We need you guys and ladies to step up to the plate and help us out, because this is disgraceful what is going on. Now the ball is in our court. We have to hire an attorney to go before a judge. Why didn't they just take us to small claims court? They considered us members of their lake association, right? They considered us members, and we didn't pay our membership fee. Well, we're not members. We were never members. Some of our residents were members over the years and then chose not to be because it was voluntary. I have never so much as put my toe in the water. I wouldn't really, but anyway, it's pretty disgusting. But, you know, we really need your help, all joking aside. We are beyond frustrated. The unethical behavior of this group of people following their attorney's lead is absolutely disgraceful. I don't know what you guys can do for us. I don't know what you ladies can do for us, but we need your help. Doors have closed, have shut us in the face more than a zillion times. I can't tell you. We've been to the county clerk's office. We have spoken to so many people. We've been told we just need an attorney. And it's really sad. So the law that was passed would have helped us, and then the governor really destroyed it. We need your help.
Thank you.
I'm Dhiren Patel, living at 218 Marcella Road.
Okay, you need to sign in. We can speak.
I
first.
did. I did.
Okay.
So, for years, Lake Parsippany Lake Association act like it's a private club. You know, when I moved into this township in 2001, when I built my house, 218 Marcella Road, Dominic Tedesco was my contractor, and it was a very nice neighborhood. We moved in. One day I was with my mom and going through the lake. I was sitting at the bench or around at the lake, and someone asked me, "Are you a lake member?" I said, "No, I'm not." So then, "You cannot enter here, you cannot sit here." This is the impression most of the people must have experienced, right? Now for years it was a private boys club or the private club. Now all of a sudden they run out of the money. No one is against the lake. If we have to spend money to maintain the lake, if we have to spend money to retain the lake, we all are for it. But no, I understand. No, what I'm trying to say that like it's the Lake Association act like a Walmart. Make a profit, privatize, and expense publicize. This is not fair. Like if it is about maintaining the lake, we all for it. But it's like running activities, swimming lesson, these and that, spending on their birdies, and this is against. And it's not like when your neighbor is nice, not saying anything, you take the advantage and make the expense publicized. Is not good. So whatever the Lake Parsippany Association is doing, it's not good. And you as a councillor saying that you oversees the operation, zoning, planning and everything, and now when push come to shove and you have to get involved, you just sit back, means indirectly you are supporting them. When you don't act, sometimes no action is action, and when you don't take action, it means you are supporting them. Have you wrote a letter to the Lake Parsippany Association and get their statement? Have you got the statement from us and see where we can, okay, let's everyone become a member of Lake Parsippany Association today, and let's dissolve this association tomorrow. Yes. Right? This is the action. Rather than spending our money after the lawyers and everyone, we have majority people here, let's become a member of the Lake Parsippany Association and systematically dissolve this association. We don't want to interfere anyone's business. This is not our
Sir?
culture or our.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but when you speak directly to the council. You
No,
cannot.
I'm because everyone is part of that, right?
No, but
so
you
we don't want to. I don't want to go along on my story.
No,
it's everyone's story.
I understand, sir.
So
but you have to address the council.
So what I'm trying to say, we can take this action, but okay, something is working. They are happy with their activity. They are doing their own. Why should we have to bother? I'm not going to take my canoe and ride that canoe in the lake, right? It's not in my piece of cake. It's not in my nature. we are a workaholic people. We like to go to the work Monday to Saturday, work from 8 in the morning to 8 in the evening, come home, relax, and live peacefully. For $400 for me, it's not a matter. But when I retire and I have to pay $10,000 for the lake, that is my concern. And I don't want to leave anything bad for my kids who don't feel that why my dad did not take action. So I'm speaking on behalf of all Indian community and everyone that please look into this matter and take action. Sometimes no action is the action, and that is the adverse action. And please everyone stand up and be a member, and let's resolve this issue.
You're out of order. You cannot address the public. You have to address them. I'm
So
sorry.
I would say if you guys cannot help us, we have to take this next step, be a member of the association and dissolve the association systematically. And that we can do it without fighting and taking a legal action. Thank you.
Can I, Council President, can I make a suggestion that the administration call a meeting with our state senator and our 2 members of the assembly and establish a meeting for these residents to talk directly to their state representatives?
Council President, if I may, before the next speaker, to the last gentleman's comments, to some degree, the township of Parsippany is part of the Lake Parsippany Property Owners Association, because today, in my incoming mail, we received an invoice that looks just like this, addressed to the township of Parsippany, because apparently the township of Parsippany owns property within the area that would be sent one of these invoices as a member of the Property Owners Association. So that invoice has been sent over. That has been sent over to Mr. Lott for his review as to how our government agency here handles such an invoice, just as is a challenge for you folks here in the audience tonight.
Was that a yes on the meeting with the state representatives?
I will be more than happy to take that idea back to Mayor Soriano, and with his approval, we'd be happy to facilitate a meeting with Senator Panaccio, Assemblywoman DeCroce, and Assemblyman Weber on this particular issue, because I do believe, as our friend from Rainbow Lake stated earlier, this is going to take a legislative solution down in Trenton, as there was an attempt to do already, and was correctly stated tonight, was conditionally vetoed by the governor. But it is going to take a legislative solution. And I just from a procedural standpoint, it should be noted that any legislative solution would now have to start from step 1, because we are in a new session of the legislature. That prior bill was introduced, adopted by both houses, conditionally vetoed by Governor Murphy during the last legislative session. So the process would have to start over again for both the Assembly and the Senate to approve, and then the governor to consent if it had the correct contents that he was reconsidered and supported at this time.
Thank you. Thank you, Emily. That's a good idea.
But it still needs to go to the Assembly.
Okay, your turn.
Karen Blunt, 200 Atlantic Drive, Parsippany, New Jersey. I'm very happy that you now are all a member of the group that we are here. Welcome aboard. And I'm a little curious, if you don't pay your $115, are they going to put the $100 late fee on you and put a lien on your property? And not in jest, they want $115. If you're 1 day late, they want a $100 late fee. I know loan sharks that don't charge that much money. I mean, it is absurd. I've been living in the lake since 1976, 4th of July, I moved in. I was a member of the lake for many years with my sons. I was on the lake board. I was part of all the committees, president of more than I can count. After my sons grew and moved away, I chose no longer to be part of the lake. I wasn't using it. We have always been a volunteer lake. We tried back in the 80s to get the lake to be a have to join, mandatory. It didn't work. It went against our charter. It went against everything that we had. So that was null and void a long, long time ago. The way things are being done now, there's ways of doing things. You can come in and be a bully and say, guess what? This is what you're going to do, and we don't care, our way or no way. Or you can come in and say, you know what? We don't have many members. We have 2,200 people that could be members, but we have a lot that don't. Maybe you can give us a hand, pay a little fee, and help us out since you do live here. There are ways of going to do things. They've come up against the senior citizens. We have senior citizens, as Mary said, who are in really dire straits. Last year, a senior citizen badge cost $130. This year, 1 year later, the senior citizen badge is now $285. Well, you get 4 badges. Well, that's nice, but what if you don't need 4 badges? What if it's just you? That's more than doubled. Come on. I mean, we don't have to be mathematicians here to understand. We understand there's very little you can do, but we want to make the council aware of what is going on, how we are being bullied, how we are being told what we're going to lean against my house. Are you kidding me? Come on. I mean, really. And then to tell us, okay, you get to pay your $115, but you don't get to vote on anything. You have no say. Now, if they collect the money, just $115, not the membership fee, just $100 from every member, that will be $253,000. I have no say on how that money will be spent. Oh yeah, that's a democracy in its finest. I mean, really. So, and I have to write on my check, I waive my voting rights? I don't think so. Let's get back to the Constitution. I mean, really. So what are I assuming that what we're trying to do is make the council aware. We are doing everything legally that we possibly can to do this the right way and not be bullied and blackmailed into joining something that we should only have a volunteer right to do. And we're just asking, we're trying to let you know what is going on across the highway, that there's a lot of people, and a lot of us are senior citizens who have been here for 40, 50, 60, 70 years. And now all of a sudden, this is what's happening to them. It's not right. It's not how you treat people. It's not how you get things done. It's bullying, and it's disgraceful. And I thank you for your time.
Good evening, Town Council.
Good evening.
Debbie Orm, 61 Atlantic Drive. Thank you very much for hearing us this evening. I appreciate that you made the public statement that you can't
Debbie, get a little closer to the mic.
can't react and make a ruling, obviously, on a private association situation, but I appreciate that you're hearing us this evening. I as well have some copies I'd like to share with the Town Council. You probably have seen the judgment. This went to court, and there is a judgment, a ruling. I just have some copies for the Town Council along with the complete judgment, so I'll share that 1 minute. If I could. With everybody. I'm sure as well that you're aware that this was a class action suit, that this had been certified as a class action suit. So over the past 3 years, though there were some members of our community who weren't aware of what was going on, about a year ago, and when it was certified as class action, everybody was informed of the situation. So it's hard to get information like this, and something that's different in our community. It hasn't been this way in the past. Some of you may be aware that the courts have been ruling in favor of lake associations for about 20 years. The Lake Lookover court case was in 2002, where the courts ruled that community members have an obligation to pay their fair share when a community asset benefits everybody. So that was the original ruling that set the precedent that we're all experiencing now. One of the things that the judge noted was that the language in the original deeds that was referenced here this evening, saying that the easement, that the property owners have that easement right to use the lake, even though the language wasn't there specifically to say that you're obligated to pay for it, that language comes with an obligation. And that's what the courts have ruled in favor of over and over and over again. So as hard as this change may be, the courts have sustained this over the years. 3 years worth of court battles, and the judge sustained it with Lake Parsippany, and the easement language is there. So even though people's titles from 1970 or 1980 don't have that specific language or may not have that specific language, if you go back to the original deeds, the language was there, and it's been acknowledged by the courts and by many people here as well. So, and I know that it's hard to hear people upset. There may be 10% of the population here tonight, and they're angry and they're upset. But there's also a lot of people who have been working hard to support the lake for many, many years, who believe that it is a valuable asset to Parsippany as a whole. Obviously, water quality, obviously, it benefits the community, benefits the property values. If that lake were stagnant, or if it were a state park, for example, our property values are definitely going to be harmed in the long run. So I know that you're hearing a lot of heartfelt and upset community members here today, but a court has ruled on this. It's in the long run, once we get through the difficult times and we work out the details, there's no liens on anybody's properties. Nobody's been assessed late fees. They're trying to manage the best they can. It's a new situation for everybody around. It's a new situation for everybody, and it's a work in progress. And we're
Guys, we just have to let her speak. We have to let her speak. We have to respect everybody's 5 minutes.
Herein lies some of the difficulties in trying to
Let the speaker
communicate.
speak. She's got the microphone.
You have to let her speak,
Please be
sir.
courteous.
Yeah, you need to let him speak.
This is
Whether you agree
sometimes
with it or not.
There are some difficulties in communicating, and again, that's also a work in progress. I shared with you some highlighted versions of the judgment. Hopefully you get a chance to read it over. PREDFA and what's going on in the state right now, and there's definitely some things that need to be worked out there. But I think the bottom line is that when there's a community asset that we all benefit from, we are all obligated to help support that benefit, and we're all reaping those benefits with our property values. You all know that, I'm sure. And if that lake was not thriving, I can tell you that our property values would be declining. So, again, I'm just letting you know that there is another side of this conversation.
Okay.
There is
Debbie,
another
your time's up.
perspective as well. So,
Thank you.
Thank you very much for hearing it.
Everybody vote if it's a community. Everybody should have a vote.
Hello. My name is Jitendra Desai. I am living at 45 Hamburg Road, Parsippany, or Lake Parsippany area. Thank you, Council President and Council members, to speak me in front of all peoples and in front of you. Actually, I bought this house last 10 years ago. So that time there are nothing to this type of thing happen, and that's, I think that this area is very good. That's why I bought this house in Lake Parsippany. So I tell one story, actually, what happened here. My neighbor bought one elephant. Couple of years, he treat him well. After that, he think that now this elephant take more expense. So that's why he put his elephant on that in parking lot. And now he sent me a notice. And now he tell me that now you have to pay the money for you see the elephant in the parking lot. Right? So this like a lake association, that lake association do same thing, because now they think this elephant, the lake, they can't manage the things. That's why they say that if you have seen my lake, that's why you have to pay the amount. And actually, we all in Lake Parsippany, we are middle class people. I am working 7 days, 7 to 7. I have no time to go to see the lake also. And now they are saying that you are living in the Lake Parsippany, you have to pay the fees. And it is not viable, sir. because we are all middle class people. We have survived because there are so many other expenses and we have to pay that amount also. So when I bought my house, that time the new that home closing, that homeowner were never given documents such as charter document or declaration by law, rules and regulation of the LPPOA. When I bought my house, they not told me, the realtor, that membership into the LPPOA was voluntary. There was nothing in the title search and stated that there was a mandatory assessment fee for the membership. When property owner asked realtor if membership is in the LPPOA was mandatory, the response of the LPPOA officer or board of director was that membership into the LPPOA was voluntary and not mandatory. In fact, LPPOA membership for the last 80 plus years has always been voluntary membership.
That is correct.
So that's all the point. And that's why I bought this house. But now that LPPOA says that now you have to pay every year, and every year they want to raise that fees also. So actually I am against of all these things, and all my family members and neighbors also against of this. So I request council president and council member, please do something and help us. Thank you so much.
Sir, if you could just make sure you just sign in. Perfect. Thank you, sir.
Hi, my name is Barbara Seaman. I live at 360 Halsey Road. I've been
Barbara,
here since
I just need you to speak up a little bit more.
I've been here since 1959 and a member of the lake since 1959 until about 3 years ago when my youngest was 33 years old, and I'm buying badges for him to fish, and he's a chef, he's never home. And I said, well, you know what, at that, I mean, it was like, $400. I said, I don't need to put that out. I've done a lot of fundraisers for the lake. I've worked there opening days. If they would have sent a letter and said, the waters are in trouble, we don't have, what is it, $40,000 for the water treatment every year? I mean, that's like $5 a family. I'm sure people would have, or people would have sent, just like our fire department. You throw a check in the mail. If it's a good week, they get a little more. If not, they don't. But it's just the way they went about it. And I don't think living in the lake, now that we're going to be a private community or whatever they want to call us, that we should have to give up any voting rights. And I really would love to know, because of now all this money, you can't meet on a Monday night and say they paid, we have to pay this. They're going to have to hire accounting firms. They're going to have to pay taxes. I doubt they're going to be a 501(c). So I hope they do let all the families know what they're going to do with their $500,000 when they get it all by March 31st. Thank you.
My name is Pulkit Desai. I came to this country when I was 13 years old. 6 years later, I'm in the Marine Corps.
Address, please.
98 Atlantic Drive, Parsippany, New Jersey. 6 years later, I'm in the Marine Corps, and I spent 6 years in the Marine Corps, and I'm a veteran of Desert Storm.
Thank you for
So that means I'm here to speak for the people who have no voice. The disabled, financial hardships, senior citizens, and people who are on fixed incomes. The majority of these people that I know have never in their lives dealt with things such as liens. Now, when they get liens, the first thought is, I'm going to lose my home because I can't pay the bill. So the LPPOA is using terrorist activities on these people. They're terrorizing them by saying liens. Now, even on people who are on fixed income, they do give to charity. And if they have come to them saying that, we need money, maybe $75, even $100, that's an extra $10 a month, many people would have complied. But they went about it the wrong way, and that is something you guys need to fight for. and that's what I'm here for. You guys need to fight for that. For the ones who have no voice, who will have difficulty to pay $100 late fees, and then the absolute terror of the liens, because many people have no idea how to get it off. They think they have to hire lawyers, they have to come to court, they think it's going to hit their credit rating. This is not just old people, even people who are young, who moved to Parsippany a few years ago, good law-abiding citizens, they don't deal with stuff like liens. There's a foreign term to many of them. So this is what they're doing. They just know that when people see liens, right away they're going to write that check and waive their rights away. And the second part is waiving their rights away. That's absolutely unethical. So what if I don't use the lake at all? Doesn't mean I can't have a voting right, but if I do use a lake, and majority of the people in Parsippany just want to walk around the lake. That's what they want to do. Walk around the lake, and you see that every single day. And if they're expected to pay $115 a year, and they have no voting rights, that's pretty bad. Thank you.
Sir, did you, Mr. Desai, did you sign in, sir? I did. Okay, thank you.
I'm a little taller. Yes, my name's Chris Savino. I've been here for like 53 years in the lake community. I've been here for like 53 years in the lake community. Okay, I was basically came here when I was
Mr. Savino, if you can just speak up, please.
Yes, I've been here about 51 years in the lake community.
We need your address, please.
105 Elmwood Drive, Parsippany, New Jersey. Okay.
It's recorded, that's why we need
Oh,
it.
okay.
Yeah, just everything is for the record, guys. We're not trying to be we just need you to speak up, and for the back as well. They don't hear you in the back.
I have to say, I take issue with the statement Mr. DiPiero said a few minutes ago. Well, at the outset of the meeting.
I just need you to speak up again, Mr. Savino. Sorry, it's working. I just need you to speak up.
I have to take issue with what Mr. DiPiero said at the beginning of the outset of the meeting, that there's nothing that the town can do, that this is simply a private property matter between private property owners. I disagree thoroughly. I'll tell you why. If the banks of Lakeshore Drive start overflowing onto Lakeshore Drive and in and around the towns and roads and bridges and access ways in and around Lake Parsippany, you'll have a major traffic jam for at least 30 miles around, okay? Because Parsippany is an artery, a hub, a highly trafficked area. And if the Lakeshore Drive overflows because we have another Hurricane Irene, or we have another Sandy, or we have another big flood, or another natural disaster, the first thing the LPPA will do is say, whoops, we don't have enough in our funding to clean all this up. We have to go to the town. And that means you guys will be on the hook to raise taxes and pay for the cleanup and the dikes, the dams, the berms, everything the LPPOA says their basic assessment fee covers. Well, that should be covered by our property taxes, okay? This is what we should be paying. It is the right and the proper role of government, local government included, to fund the dikes, the berms, the dams, everything that regulates the overflow of Lake Parsippany onto potentially public highways or public roads that can disrupt traffic and cause property damage. Why? Because you'll be the first persons to pay for all this. They're not going to do it. All right? They're not going to take the money out of their pocket to do this. They'll come taxpayer, and that's the elected representatives. They'll ask you for money. And this is the problem we have. The town council has to do something. They have to pass some kind of ordinance that basically makes it redundant for the lake to charge basic member assessment fees. Because I think we should be paying for this in our property taxes, and our property taxes pay for this. Okay? If that's their justification for basic member assessment, really, that's the role of government, not of a private association elected only by a handful of people, decided by a 7-member board who are not held to accountability for the public. That's rife for corruption. Because who oversees them? Them. They oversee them. That's the problem. Moreover, unlike the local media, the Daily Record, the Star Ledger, is going to scrutinize them very carefully. You guys get scrutinized. Everything you say is on public record. I trust you people to raise the taxes necessary to pay for that public space, and that's a public space. If we can overflow onto Lakeshore Drive, if we have a natural disaster, that is a public space. And you have the right to ask taxpayers to pay for that, okay, for the maintenance of that, so we don't have to have a private club charging mandatory assessment fees for the privilege of operating this lake.
Sir, 1 minute.
In conclusion, I take kind of exception to the fact that there's nothing the town council can do. There's a lot the town council can do, okay? If not through direct ordinance, definitely through their influence through elected representatives at the state level. A lot of people here don't have a voice. They're not politically connected. They don't have a high fancy attorney working for them, whispering in the governor's ear saying, hey, psst, change this law. That'll work. We need you. Thank you.
Hello, council member. My name is Niral Patel, and I live in 42 Essex Road, Lake Parsippany. I came to this country when I was 17-year-old, but since then I live in Lake Parsippany or Parsippany for my entire life. What I've earned, what I've done everything on my own. So now I decided to move in Lake Parsippany. I bought a house, and all of a sudden I get hit by this invoice saying that you have to pay this hidden fee in a fine print. I just want to bring to your attention, we did some research on this so-called attorney. It's actually not an attorney, it's a consultant to this Lake LPPO member. We've done research that this person has actually gone to 9 or 10 different lake associations, and she has turned this into a business for herself. So this Lake Parsippany is just one of her projects. And I also have done research that this person is also a member of legislature where she recommends making the laws. So now this person is recommending making the laws. How is it helping us in Lake Parsippany fighting with this person? So we really ask for your help to take this to senator or even above senator to governor. We need to be heard this time and heard in the right way. So that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Did you sign in?
Yes, I did.
Respected council members and council president. I'm just going to talk like a kid because I feel like a kid right now.
Name and address, please.
My name is Sushil Pongorlekar. I live at 43 Everett Road. Thank you. Once it was said that it is a private property and it is between you and the other person and we don't know anything. This is like, I never heard this from my parents. When I had issues, my parents intervened for me, and they solved the problem with any third person. We look towards you since we elected you, and we look forward to you as our parents. Please don't disown us. There are so many places where it is written, Parsippany, a place to be. Please do not make it a place not to be. That's all I would say. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. Howard Wren, 12 Dayton Road. The concerns I have is that who's to say that this fee doesn't increase every year? They can make it as much as they want. There's no oversight in how high they can make this. The other thing is we have elderly people who are really concerned who don't even have the money to pay this as it is. We don't know how high this fee is going to go up. Some lake associations are paying thousands of dollars every year. And, and then the other thing is they want us to pay, but then we have no voting rights. We can't say anything. So even though our money would go to the maintenance of the lake, then they have a higher tier membership that goes to the recreation. They're trying to prevent us from having any say in anything. They just want our money like a cash cow, but then they don't want us to have any rights. We want to be able to at least say, hey, if we're paying you money, like, we should be able to discuss where the money's going, and get some kind of insight about what's going on. They can do whatever they want, and they want our money, but they don't want to include us in anything. So that's my major concern. But thank you.
Howard, excuse me, can you please just sign in?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, can I ask you a question? Has the association reached out to other towns who have this problem, who have this issue? Are there other towns in New Jersey that have this issue, and have you reached out to any of those?
Other people will be able to probably speak better than me, because
Okay.
I'm not really...
This is up and down North
Okay.
Shore.
Yeah, okay.
There's a lake.
All right.
The question, ma'am, was have there been other towns, has the association reached out to other towns to see if they're doing the same thing? And the gentleman answered yes, and in most of lake communities, this is what they're trying to do. Ma'am, can't speak from there. You'll have to come up to the mic.
My name is Leroy Gearhart. I've lived 60 years at 206 Marcella Road, and I'm not concerned about the $115 as much as most people are, but I'm concerned about the Constitution of the United States, Article 14, that does not allow anybody to assess our property or anything else, and that's what my concern is. Also, we have 2,000 homes plus. Where can we all go if 2,000, maybe 4,000 people go and join the lake? Where do they have a place to let us go and vote? It only holds 93 to 98 members where I was the other day. So now you tell me how they can make us all join when they do not have the facilities to take care of us. Can you give me an answer to that? Nobody up there can. And if nobody has a copy of the Constitution, I have one right here. I also have a copy. I have a copy about the easement. And nowheres in the easement does it say they can put an assessment. It says they can use my land for drainage, put a sidewalk in. This is what is in the easement of this thing. And I never had it said to me until after 30 years when I paid my mortgage off, which was paid off 2 months ahead of time because I always paid it on the 15th and it was due on the 1st. My taxes were paid the 15th of January for February because I don't want to be late, because I don't want you guys to take my property. I've lived there for 60 years and I ain't planning on moving, and my wife will tell you that because my wife tells me we got to move to a bigger place. Now it's only her and me, and my son also still lives with us, and he's 62, because he's not going to go out and buy a house because he wants his money in the bank. That's all I got to say. Now keep in mind about if you need a copy of it, I'll give it to you. If you haven't looked at the Constitution lately. I didn't graduate high school, but I got a dictionary that's that thick.
If you were,
This easement of $115 a year, it's wrong. They are going against the Constitution of the United States, and I think all of you members up here know that. And you got to keep in mind also, there is over 4,000 voters in our area. Keep that in mind, because I voted for every one of you guys last year. But next year's another story. Do you need these copies?
give them to the clerk. Anyone else?
Oh. No, you can, ma'am. You can speak on any topic you want.
My name is Mary Pat Belmel. I live at 7 Nokomis Avenue in Lake Hiawatha, and after hearing this, I guess I'm very glad they never developed that lake.
I'm still looking for it.
So I wish everybody the best. I know the town council here will do everything that they can to try and help our town because we all believe in it. I was here, if you may remember, quite passionate last month about a proposal that I wanted to make regarding zoning and the introduction of an accessory use dwelling. I sent in a letter that I believe Khaled had published to everybody. Being somewhat new to these kinds of forums, I'm not aware of the next steps, and I wanted to know what it is that I can do as a citizen to help move this along, and whether you had any questions.
Council President, I had the opportunity to speak to the township planner. Your proposal was referred to the township planner. We've spoken preliminarily. I understand that there may be some pending enforcement actions with respect to your property, and I need to speak to the township planner as well as code enforcement. I have not done that yet.
Would you recommend that I come back next month, or Caleb has my contact information if you want?
Yes, I
I should
have.
try to have an answer for you next month.
Okay, I'll be back. One last question? Would that mean that this difference of opinion that I have with our zoning department, not quite sure I would use the exact term that you used, will that be held at bay until next month, until we get more discussion on the topic?
I can't make that determination until I speak to zoning.
Okay then, thank you. Got better this month.
Did you sign in, ma'am?
Yes, I did, sir.
Fantastic, thank you.
Nick Homiak, Lake Hiawatha. What we're hearing here is the killing of the host that this system in this country does to the ordinary person by not contributing to the common good, because government is the solution, not the problem. And we rob the poor and give to the rich. And now we have a lake that nobody wants to take care of for a few extra dollars. Unbelievable. So what good is the rateable chase done Parsippany? I didn't see Mayor Soriano's speech as doom and gloom. I saw it as reality. And where is this large tax increase? The last tax increase that I remember was for the average person in Parsippany, $5 and change. So if you're living in a $300,000 home, you give $5. I don't see that as a large tax increase. You want to do something for senior citizens? You want to see Jersey Joe Panaccio and all of these Republican representatives that we have? Tell them to end the Board of Education taxes for seniors retired on set incomes. I can't even afford to have my teeth fixed, and I worked all my life, but I had some hard turns. We already gave to the common good. Now it's time for them to give back to us, the senior citizen. Let all these other people who have the kids in the school, let them pay. Get the senior citizens on set incomes that are retired and the Board of Education taxes, and it can be done. And I don't. To me, you don't need a rocket scientist. Another thing, there is a difference between the zoning board of adjustments and the planning board. But then again, there isn't. And this is what I mean by this. You want to extend your driveway or put a walk-in. That's a minor change. But also, going before the zoning board, things like water view, things like Mossberg's, 180 units he wants now up on Route 10. Even the Liquid Church recently, 150 truckloads of dirt to extend their parking lot. Those are big changes, and they need to be scrutinized. And you want to be nice to everybody, you want to make everybody's life better, is one thing. But when the zoning board is faced with these big adjustments, it's like you might as well be at the planning board. And I think that this ordinance that Mayor Soriano is trying to pass, I don't know how powerful it would really be. Next week, I'm going to ask some questions on it. But I think if it's been around since 2013, I wonder what would have happened if we could have appealed what happened to Waterview when we got the overwhelming no vote, and then we had the carpet pulled out from underneath us. I wonder what would have happened if we would have had that ordinance back then. So I'll leave it at that, and I'll have some questions about the ordinance next week for Mr. Lott. So, good night.
Get ready.
Back there somewhere.
I see him, okay, he's sitting down, okay.
My name is Bob. My name is Bob Venezia, and I live at 102 Brooklawn Drive. I watched the video recording of the mayor's State of the Township address in its entirety, and I now like to offer my comments and suggestions on its contents. First off, I'd like to commend the mayor on his outstanding presentation skills. He's really good. There were several items in the address that were also commendable. In the area of community relations, I've heard a lot of positive feedback about the neighborhood town meetings, and I think the plans to upgrade the business district in Lake Hiawatha will pay dividends for the community and for the township as a whole. But there were two very important areas that the State of the Township address did not handle well at all, and that's the zoning board proposal and the budget. My immediate reaction to the proposal to allow residents to appeal zoning board decisions was twofold. One, why weren't appeals to the planning board decisions also included, since they have as much impact on development in the township as does the zoning board? And two, why bother to have a zoning board at all? Under an appeals process, council members would have to review all the voluminous materials associated with every appealed case in its entirety. And I would expect every pro-development zoning board decision to be appealed, since there are at least some objectors to every major project that is proposed. Council members have neither the time nor the expertise to evaluate expert presentations and testimony, traffic studies, environmental studies, professional maps and blueprints, and input from the public that are necessary to implement an appeals process. And, okay, and now I want to get to the budget. The budget mess and the effects of two 0% rate increases in 2013 and 2017 are highly exaggerated. First, it's important to note that by law, budget expenses cannot exceed budget revenues. So any year that had a 0% tax increase also had a 0% spending increase. Second, other townships often come in with budget increases that are less than the 2% cap, and zero increases are not uncommon. For example, Mayor Fulop of Jersey City, whose name was mentioned in the State of the Township address, had 0% tax increases for 4 consecutive years, 2014 and 2017. And our own Mimi Letts, a fiscally conservative Democrat, levied a 0% tax increase in 2001, which also happened to be an election year. One final point about the 0% rate increases. Although the previous administration did levy 0% increases twice, the average increase during their 8 years in office was 1.86%, very close to the maximum allowable 2%. And at an average annual increase just below the maximum allowable 2%, the current administration cannot credibly blame 2 years of zero increases for creating a budgetary crisis. It's common knowledge that balancing the general budget has become dependent on annual cash infusion from the utility surpluses. But the drain on these surpluses has now reached a point where transfers will be unsustainable in the future. In all fairness, the current administration had nothing to do with creating this problem. But after 2 years in office, it has also done very little to resolve it and has continued the practice of tapping the utilities to balance its own general budgets. The council president just identified over $500,000 of new spending that increased both the size and the salaries of our government. Applying these funds to reducing the utility transfer amount would have gone a long way in strengthening their surpluses. Instead, last year the administration chose to apply a small token amount of $50,000 to shore up the utilities. However, note that the total annual transfer amount from the utilities is about $3 million. If the administration continues its policy of reducing the transfer amount by $50,000 each year, it'll take 60 years before the entire $3 million transfer amount is totally dissolved. There needs to be a better plan. As part of this year's budget process, which is currently underway, I asked the administration to include a new plan to manage transfers between the utilities and the general budget. The plan does not have to be radical. There's no need to totally eliminate transfers unless conditions in the utilities warrant it. And there may be budget years when no action needs to be taken.
Time is up.
I got like 2 sentences. You don't want me to come back in 2 weeks for 2 sentences, because I'll do it.
All right, finish the 2 sentences.
You're going to be here either way, Bob. We both know that. Come on.
Bob, you got 15 seconds. Go ahead.
First, the plan should use standard accounting guidelines to define a minimum surplus for each utility. Then it must prescribe steps that are to be taken in any year where the utility surpluses dip below their minimum amounts. And finally, the plan must be achievable in a reasonable amount of time. Questions, comments?
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
Good evening, everybody. I'll face the council. First of all, I hope you can really work out this situation in Lake Parsippany. I wish the best to both sides.
Name and address, please, sir.
I know, you're right. I'm sorry, Council President. Excuse me. I should know better, shouldn't I? But I'm here tonight to talk about...
We need your name.
Huh?
Name and address.
Can't hear me?
We can hear you, but we need your
name
name
and
address.
address for the record.
Name's James Robert Barberio. I'll give you the whole name. 137 Minnehaha Boulevard. I've been living in Parsippany for more than 50-something years, since 1964. So now you got my whole history. I'm the former mayor of the township of Parsippany Troy Hills as well. I'm here to address the Mayor Sariano's state of the town. And I wrote some stuff down because it's kind of absurd that he continues to blame the past administration. Okay? I have stayed quiet for 2 years because I felt it was my responsibility to allow the mayor, the new mayor, to govern the township of Parsippany Troy Hills. But obviously he cannot do that. Halfway into his term, he continues to blame me for all his woes. I accomplished a lot, and I'm proud of my accomplishments. I take responsibility for my accomplishments and for the things that I did as the mayor. Because that's what leaders do. Leaders don't point fingers. Leaders don't say it's your fault. I left the town in great fiscal shape. He wants to believe that it didn't. I had 2 0% interest. I mean, 2 0%, no increases in 13 and 17. Why could I do it in 2017? Because when I became the mayor in 2010, the township was in dire straits. And it's no other administration's fault. The bottom fell out in the market, okay? Ratables were going down. Businesses were leaving. When I walked into town, we were 4.7 million square feet of office space down. There's 26 million square feet of office space in all of Morris County, 14 million lie in Parsippany. What that means is if those ratables go down, your taxes go up. Well, over my 8 years, I formed committees. I formed an action team. And in 2016, for the first time since 2006,
Parsippany had its first rateable increase of $1 million. Doesn't sound like much, but now we're going to get to 17, and this is where it plays a big factor, because we discussed this in our Finance Committee meetings, if you remember, Loretta. $27 million increase in 2017. That was why you could have a 0%. Had nothing to do with an election. They like you to believe that. And another thing I didn't do when I was the mayor, I didn't hire all these political cronies. I didn't do that. I kept everybody. In fact, the Daily Record's first article about me was, and they said something good about me, which I couldn't believe, that he didn't let anybody go. Because you know why? I believed in continuity. I believe in giving everybody a chance. My fellow residents, all I can tell you is this. Because you keep hearing taxes are going to go up. Now, when you heard what Mr. Homiak said about $5, they would have went up more, but this council knocked down the mayor's increase. I don't know what you had of that. Was it 6-7%? You brought it down to 2.78%, something like that?
2.8.
That is why your taxes didn't go up significantly. You know, and I will say this, because, and I wish the mayor were here, but he's not tonight. I'll get him at the next meeting, because I will talk about the sewer surplus. Nobody knows that sewer treatment plant better than me. I remember that sewer treatment plant when it was losing money like you couldn't imagine. It was dilapidated. Okay, it had no surplus coming in it. I left it with $10 million.
1 minute.
I left it with $10 million. And I will tell you this, Janice, 0 is 0, and 0 is 0. And I'll explain to you what 0 means at the next meeting. Because everyone says 0 is not really 0, but Mr. Venenzia, he explained it pretty well what 0 meant. Okay, the bottom line is this. Hold on to your wallets. Unless this council doesn't give them the tax increases that you want, nail your wallets down, because they're going to go up if he gets his way. You know, some of you know my mother, some of you don't. But she did instill one thing in me. You take responsibility for your own actions. When I was the mayor, there was things I took responsibility for. I got hit with 3 major storms. I didn't blame nobody. I just went to work, rolled my sleeves up, because that's what leaders do. Until this mayor can be a leader, I'll be here every time he mentions my name, and I promise you that. And thank you for your time, and I appreciate everything that you're doing. And I will be back, and I will be back, and I will show you budget from budget to budget, and why it's increasing, and why it increased from 2018 when it all started. In 2018, you got significant increases, and I can show it to you. Thank you.
You're right in line.
All right. Good evening, everyone. All the
Just
people
need
here tonight.
name and address, please.
Name and address. Louis Ulano, 28 Wesley Place, Mount Tabor, New Jersey. All right. So I'm the chief of the Parsippany Rescue and Recovery Unit, and I just want to thank all of you up here for your support over the years, especially recently. You know, you guys allotted us a lot of capital funding to help replace outdated equipment and vehicles. And this support hasn't been unnoticed, and it couldn't be done without you. So I just want to say thank you.
Did you, Louis, did you sign in? Just, you sign in. Thank you.
Anyone else want to speak?
Barney Collins, 60 Old Cherry Hill Road. Yes, there is a house there. I'm glad to see that some people are safety-minded. Thank you for that earlier, Khaled.
Yeah, no problem.
I'm here to address some other concerns other than money. Public safety, which apparently doesn't rank too high on the list of priorities here. There have been a number of recent events, including minor children, violent events, attacks on kids, more specifically in the Lake Hiawatha region. And I was just wondering what the action plan is, Mr. Soriano. Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
again, I will address this probably next week when he may be
You
here.
can,
May be prepared to answer my
You can address this to the chair, and I will relay it to the administration if you want.
Yeah, please.
I'm sure he's very well aware. I've written to his office personally and specifically detailed all the information.
Okay, I'm aware of it too, and I would like to request that the mayor and the police chief report to the council the incidents that these 4 individuals, how many police reports do we have, who are they, do they live here, and what action has been taken each time the police were called.
Mr. Collins, I think most importantly is, how is your son?
My son, to put it simply, physical harm heals. Do you see where I'm going with that?
Yes.
All right.
Some of the people in this audience don't know what you're talking about. Do you want to just briefly do a...
Oh, sure. In recent weeks, there was an incident, including the 4 individuals that you're speaking about, where they assaulted mind you, between 18 and 22 years of age, assaulted a minor child in the Dunkin' Donuts parking lot on North Pembroke Road. A couple days ago, my son was assaulted at the McDonald's by the Target by the same 4 individuals. He's 14 years old. However, in the eyes of law enforcement, this falls under 2C, which is a misdemeanor. Unfortunately, slap on the wrist, which is left for them to come out on the street the next day and the next day and the next day. What I wanted to address to Mr. Soriano is, nobody cares about a ban on plastic bags. What we don't want to see is a bag zipped up with one of our kids in it. What's he going to do?
Okay, hopefully the report that I requested will be, we will have at our next meeting. Anyone else? I'll entertain a
Come
motion.
on, no, hold on, we have someone.
My name's Lori Chute.
Just need you to speak up a little bit, ma'am.
I feel like I am. I live at 58 Nokomis Avenue in Lake Hiawatha. For 25 years, I've walked on the golf courses when they're closed. They were purchased with Green Acres money. In the last year or so, I've noticed that there are a large number of mature oak trees, mostly oak trees, that are being cut, especially on the west course. And I want to know why. Many of them, when I count the growth rings on those trees, they're 200 or 300 years old. Trees like that, especially oak trees, they support a great deal of wildlife, including beneficial insects, butterflies, birds, mammals. Why are they being cut down? They're not being replaced. Some of them may be old, but they're not diseased. Some are in perfect shape. Someone told me that they plan to cut down 150 trees. I don't know why. I'd like to know more. What's going on there? You know, that golf course, it's a beautiful place, and it's not just a place where people can play golf all, part of the year. It's an ecosystem. There's all kinds of animals that live there, native plants. There's a hawk that depends on the squirrels and chipmunks that live in those trees. So, if it's Green Acres land, are they allowed to cut so many trees that are healthy?
When you're done, I'll try to answer.
Okay.
Are you finished?
That's what I would like to know.
Okay. If you'll recall, the Knoll Country Club was completed in 1926. Okay. I'll try. The golf course was completed, the west course was completed in 1926. And many of those trees were mature then.
Yes.
And that's almost 100 years ago, and they were mature then. Some of them are diseased, some of them are dangerous. Some of the branches are beginning to fall down, which are a hazard. The only trees that are selected to come down are those which either are diseased or have become a hazard to the golf course. And that decision is not made by us, it's made by Parks and Forestry and experts at the Knoll Country Club.
Who is it? It's Forestry?
Parks and Forestry.
Is that they've contracted with that company?
No, Parks and Forestry is the township.
Oh, Parks and Forestry.
Yes.
They're the ones who are cutting.
Well, the head of Parks and Forestry is our expert in town on trees, and the experts at the Knoll do lean on him for his guidance.
Should I talk to him?
The other trees in town that are coming down, you might see in neighborhoods, are the ash trees.
I'm aware of that problem. I know about it.
Okay, all right. Again,
these are
that's a
not ash
recommendation.
trees.
No, that's a recommendation. You can talk to our Parks and Forestry director is Jimmy Walsh.
Yeah.
Give him a call, he'll explain it to you.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Make a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Grignani, seconded by Ms. Peterson. Roll call. Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Floor is closed.
I'd like to just say, I'm sure it was asked of us, there was a lot of people that were asking us what we're going to do for you. As of right now, I know it's been stated that there's not much that we can do. I want to state for myself, I agree wholeheartedly with what's been done. It's a disgrace to you how the association went about it. It was brought up, this is just my opinion, it was brought up that maybe they could have asked for donations and gone about it a different way. I grew up in the lake. I was a lake member for many years when my parents joined the lake when I was a child. I understand the situation that they're in right now, but I totally agree with you. I just want you to know that I pledge my support 100% for what you're trying to do here and to help you any way that I can.
All right, we're going to take a 5-minute break, and then we'll be back. We're going to reconvene the meeting. They're still making noise in the hall.
No, thank gosh.
Okay, we're going to reconvene the meeting. Roll call, please.
Mr. Carriffy?
Here.
Ms. Grignani?
Present.
Ms. McCarthy?
Here.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Here.
Okay.
Okay, we're in business.
Okay.
We're up to ordinances for introduction.
Ordinance 2020:6, an ordinance of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills, County of New Jersey. You know, this particular ordinance, I'd like to table this.
You could do a motion to table.
I'll do a motion to table this.
Do we have a second?
Second.
So-
I would prefer to just defeat it and kill it.
Well, we can vote on the motion now, and then we can continue. Since we have a motion by Ms. McCarthy, seconded by Ms. Peterson, and this is a motion to table ordinance 2020:06. At this point, I'll go ahead and take roll. Mr. Carriffy?
No.
Ms. Grignani?
No, I'd like to continue with this ordinance, please.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
No, I'd like to vote on it and defeat it.
Okay, motion fails, so now we'll go ahead and continue.
An ordinance of the Township Council, the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills, Morris County, New Jersey, authorizing appeals from the Township Zoning Board of Board of Adjustments to the Township Council pursuant to NJSA 40:55D-17. Be it resolved that the above ordinance be introduced, read by title, and passed on the first reading at a meeting of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills held on February 18, 2020, and that said ordinance be further considered for a second reading and final passage at a meeting to be held on March 17, 2020 at 7 p.m. prevailing time, or as soon thereafter as the matter may be reached at the municipal building in said township, in which time all persons interested shall be given an opportunity to be heard concerning said ordinance. Be it further resolved that the clerk be authorized and directed to advertise said ordinance with the notice of introduction thereof being published in the official newspaper according to law. Motion to approve. Need a vote.
Need a second?
For discussion purposes only, I will second.
So we have
So
motion
now-
being...
So now we are in the discussion stage.
correct.
Okay. Loretta, you wanted to say something?
Yes, I will. As council, we are not experts in planning and land use laws. We have an excellent planner on the board who knows this town like the back of his hand and was involved for many years in our master plans. I suggest we leave these matters to the experts. The administration has another option, one being having an attorney representing the administration to convey the administration's objections regarding development in this area.
You know, I'd just like to say that, you know, these ordinances, these zoning ordinances are passed by the council. And the zoning board then makes the decision. And according to the information that we have, it's often, in most cases, about 90-some% of the cases, they're approving changes to these ordinances.
Well, what they're primarily doing is a lot of lots in Parsippany are non-conforming. So anything the resident does in a non-conforming lot, change the air conditioner, put in a roof on, new siding, they have to go for variance because they live on a non-conforming lot, and that's outrageous. But that's a lot of what they have to do. In the case of Mazdabrook, where the developer built large houses so he could maximize impervious coverage on the size of the house, but then he did not build a deck. So everyone who bought those houses had to go for a variance to the Board of Adjustment, the zoning board, to put a deck on their house. It's ridiculous. So, yeah, a lot of what they're gonna vote on are nuisance things like that have to be voted on. The major reason we should not do this is the zoning board and the planning board both have planners that advise them, attorneys that advise them, and engineers that advise them to make sure they stay within the land use laws, make sure they understand the current zoning in the area, and they hear the entire application. The applicants present their experts under testimony and under oath. The zoning board can ask questions, can question their own experts for advice, and it's due process. They have followed due process. Anytime the zoning board approves an application, they have followed due process. Now, what this ordinance wants us to do is, if some residents disagree with the zoning board's decision, that we should overrule them. In order for us to overrule them, we would have to, first of all, go back and listen to all the testimony that was given during the application. We still would not have the advice of the zoning board attorney, planner, and engineer, and we would not be able to question the applicant. And yet some residents might want us to overturn that ordinance. It would be a nightmare. And all these applicants would have to do is go to court and say, I followed due process, the zoning board said okay, and now the council's playing politics.
Council President, just so we're clear on the scope of the ordinance, the residential bulk conditions, things that involves dormers, decks, siding, etc., are not the subject of the ordinance. The ordinance only concerns itself with the grant of a use variance. There are 6 different types of use variances. Those types of variances, right, by their very nature, are inherently, all right, more substantial than the residential variances that most of the zoning board hears. So, use variances concern themselves with, is the use permitted? Is there a proposal to expand a non-conforming use? Is there a proposal to deviate from a conditional use standard? Is there a variance required for exceeding height, floor area coverage, and the number of permitted dwelling units? Those are the 6 type of use variances.
And most of those, as I understand it, have to do with development.
Correct, and for the most part, non-residential development, meaning non-single family homes. But by the nature of the use variances that we just talked about, they're almost always implicate more significant commercial development.
Right.
So I just want to make sure that everybody understands what the scope of the ordinance is. It would only be applicable to the grant of a use variance by the zoning board, not the residential, what are called residential C variances that, for the most part, concern themselves with one and two family homes.
Right, and I think the other thing to be clear about is that this council appoints the members to this zoning board. So essentially, they're supporting the zoning board and the decisions that they make, by proxy. So, I think it's very important to understand that when you look to the zoning board's decision, you also have to look to the council that appoints those members to the zoning board. So,
Can I also just state for the record, we went back and looked at the number of use variances, not the decks and the dormers, but the actual large-scale development use variances. And in the years 2014 through 2018, there were 59 that were yes, 7 that were withdrawn applications, and 2 that were denied. So in a total of 70 or so, 60 were approved that would classify. That's not to determine how I'm going to vote on this ordinance, but just for the record, those are the numbers.
And of course, the appeal would have to be taken by an interested party. Somebody would have to affirmatively step forward and file the petition to appeal. So it wouldn't require that council review every use variance that was granted. That's not to say that some of the use variances granted by the zoning board are appropriate. I'm sure they are, based on the evidence and the testimony that was heard by the board. The appeal process, as proposed in the ordinance, would give council some oversight through checks and balances to monitor what the zoning board has done.
Through you, Council President, I have a question for Jim. Jim, what are the legalities of the administration, either through an attorney or directly from the front office, putting their opinions or objections to a potential application on the record before it's heard by the board?
So they can't do it before the application is heard. They can do it during the application process. It's not typically done. Some communities have appointed a public advocate, all right, to advocate for members of the public in connection with use variance proceedings.
Okay, any more discussion?
I'm going to make a comment right before I vote.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead, and since there's no more discussion.
Okay.
This is discussion.
All right, then I'll make my points now. It was brought up earlier that the planning board's decisions are pretty much in line, the amount that get approved, as the Board of Adjustment. Board of Adjustment's appointed by us. We have a large board that does their homework, spends many hours, it's a volunteer, many hours. They listen to experts, they get expert testimony, they get feedback. If we're looking to do this, then what's to say why aren't we doing an ordinance to be able to override the planning board as well? So, but I'm throwing that out there.
Right.
Okay?
No, it's a legitimate observation, and I want to explain the distinction because it's an important legal distinction. I don't want to cut you off, but go ahead.
Okay. So, to me, it's a redundancy. We have a planning board that's made up of multiple members that hear all this testimony, spend hours and hours going over everything, and then they come up and they make a decision. So we're just going to say, well, if somebody doesn't like it, well, they just come to us, and then we got to just do everything all over again, and we're not experts on it. I think it's a waste of time when they have those experts listening to the original testimony, listening to the experts, the feedback, getting everything from them before they make their decision. And they are making their decision based on everything that they are getting. And this ordinance would just let us just say, well, you know what? We didn't like what you did, so we're going to override it. I totally disagree with that.
So as I said, all I do is draft the ordinances. I don't have a position one way or the other, but just so everybody understands how the law operates here, there is no opportunity under the municipal land use law for a governing body to review the decisions of the planning board. The reason for that is that when the application is heard at the planning board, the use is permitted. The planning board's function in that case is to assess compliance with the site plan and subdivision standards. So if a planning board makes an error and a member of the public thinks that they're aggrieved based on that determination, their only remedy is to go see a judge in court. Contrast that with the zoning board, all right, where the nature of the application, as I explained previously, right, is a significant departure from the zoning ordinance use requirements. All right, and therefore is viewed as, at least initially, as an impairment to what council has already decided pursuant to an adopted zoning ordinance, as well as a potential impairment to the intent and purpose of the master plan. So the considerations are different. One relates to compliance with site plan and subdivision standards, which for the most part are largely engineering considerations, all right, as opposed to the zoning board when it hears a use variance application where there's already been a determination made by mayor and council when they adopted a zoning ordinance as to whether or not the use is permitted. So there's an important distinction there. The municipal land use law only allows council, all right, to review the grant of a use variance.
No, I get all that. I mean, I was just throwing that out as an example that, the planning board does their research, does everything, and who's to say that, I mean, why would somebody just want to just wipe out all of their work that they did and be able to do that? I just don't agree with, I think, we have a board of adjustment. These people have been on there. They're put on there. They do all the, first off, they don't get paid. It's all volunteer. They're spending hours and hours of doing this research, listening to experts. They have the planning. They have their attorney. They have their experts. They're getting their feedback. Then they make their educated decision. And now you're just going to be able to say, well, you know what? We don't like it. We're going to the council. We want that thrown out.
That's absolutely true. I sat as a zoning board member many years ago in the community that I live. All right, it is a thankless job. I recognize that. The reason why the law provides for the appeal process is one that concerns what's called deference to legislative action. All right, in the land use law, the grant of the use variance is viewed as an extraordinary measure. Planning and zoning decisions, and there's a legion of case law on this, all right, is to be accomplished through compliance with the ordinance, not by granting exceptions to the ordinance. And that's what the zoning board does. The zoning board grants exceptions. That's the very nature of what they do. So that's the reason. It's deference to what the mayor and council decided initially with respect to the zoning ordinance. That's why the appeal process is allowed. It's not an opportunity for members of mayor and council to poke at the zoning board on a particular decision. It's one of a policy consideration about the importance of the nature of the variance that will be granted, right, or that could be granted.
Any more discussion?
No,
Okay.
we'll call for a vote.
Okay, let's call for a vote. So we had a motion made by Ms. McCarthy, seconded by Mr. DePiero. Roll call, Mr. Carriffy?
No.
Ms. Grignani?
No.
Ms. McCarthy?
I'm going to abstain on this because I think there's a lot more information that needs to be
Okay.
determined and what the process is. But I will say that I think if the council is approving and passing ordinances, and to have them, these ordinances or the decisions that they make so consistently, it seems, to be an issue. I mean, I think the due diligence is on the council's part also when they approve these zoning ordinances. And, to have them change, to change or make a decision on them so consistently seems to be questionable.
Ms. Peterson?
What Janice said, I abstain.
Okay. And then Mr. DePiero.
Well, just one point on what Janice said. Zoning usually occurs in large tracts of land, not one particular lot, but large tracts of land. If there is an application that wants to have a use that's different than the zoning in that area, okay? The law has provided a way for the applicant to deal with that. It's called a variance. If the council were to change the zoning for that one piece of land, okay, that's called spot zoning, and that is illegal. The remedy for that is for the Board of Adjustment to grant variances for smaller parcels of land that will not be in violation of the land use law.
Again, it has nothing to do with the bulk condition of the lot. It has to do with the use.
Okay,
I vote no.
Okay, so we have 3 noes. The motion passes. And just for clarification for the record, the next ordinance coming up, 2020-07, is not related, nor it has nothing to do with ordinance number 1.
Right.
So this way everybody knows and is aware.
Ordinance 2020:07. An ordinance of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills, Morris County, New Jersey, amending and supplementing Chapter 430, zoning of the Township Code. Be it resolved that the above ordinance be introduced, read by title, and passed on first reading at a meeting of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills held on February the 18th, 2020, and that said ordinance be further considered for second reading and final passage at a meeting to be held on March 17th, 2020 at 7 p.m. prevailing time or as soon thereafter as the matter may be reached at the municipal building in said township, at which time all persons interested shall be given an opportunity to be heard concerning said ordinance. Be it further resolved that the clerk be authorized and directed to advertise said ordinance with the notice of introduction thereof being published in the official newspaper according to law. Motion?
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Grignani, seconded by Mr. Carriffy. Any discussion? None? Roll
Council
call?
President, I spoke to the township planner about this. She'll be available at second reading. Most of the changes contained in 2020-07 are definitional changes. There is also some new regulation of outdoor storage pods that have been recommended some time ago, and we'll have a full explanation of that at second reading.
Thank you.
Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Second reading of public hearing, ordinance 2020:03. Bond ordinance reappropriating $250,000 proceeds of an obligations not needed for the original purpose in order to provide for other expenses to the Knoll West Clubhouse building at the Golf and Recreational Utility in and by the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills in the County of Morris, New Jersey. The notice for the ordinance above was published in the Daily Record, the official newspaper of the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills, on January 27, 2020. This ordinance was introduced at the January 21, 2020 regular meeting. Motion to accept the ordinance 2020:03 be heard in its second and final reading, entitled by myself.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Carriffy, seconded by Ms. Grignani. Roll call, Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Make a motion to open up the public hearing on this ordinance and this ordinance only.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Carriffy, seconded by Ms. Grignani. Roll call, Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Floor is open on this ordinance only. Seeing no one else?
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Carriffy, seconded by Ms. Peterson. Roll call, Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Okay.
Whereas the above ordinance was read in title on second reading and a hearing held thereon, now therefore be it resolved that said ordinance be passed on final reading and that a notice of final passage of said ordinance be published in the newspaper according to law. Motion to approve the resolution of the
Second.
above made by myself.
Motion
Second.
made by Mr. Carriffy, seconded by Ms. Grignani. Roll call, Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Ordinance 2020:04, bond ordinance providing for the replacement of the irrigation system at the Knoll West Golf Course at the Golf and Recreational Utility in and by the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills in the County of Morris, New Jersey, appropriating $400,000 therefore and authorizing the issuance of $400,000 bonds or notes of the township for financing the cost thereof. The notice for the ordinance above was published in the Daily Record, the official newspaper of the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills, on January 27, 2020. This ordinance was introduced at the January 21st, 2020 regular meeting. Motion to accept that this ordinance 2020:04 be heard in its second and final reading by title only by myself.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Peterson, seconded by Mr. Carriffy. Roll call, Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Public hearing 2020:04, motion to open the public hearing for ordinance 2020:04.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Peterson, seconded by Mr. Carriffy. Roll call, Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Floor is open on this ordinance only. Seeing no one else?
Motion to close the public hearing for ordinance 2020:04.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Peterson, seconded by Mr. Carriffy. Roll call, Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Floor is closed.
Whereas the ordinance was read in title on second reading and a hearing held thereon, now therefore be it resolved that the ordinance be passed on final reading and that a notice of final passage of said ordinance be published in the newspaper according to law. Motion to approve the resolution.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Peterson, seconded by Mr. Carriffy. Roll call, Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Ordinance 2020:05, an ordinance establishing hourly wage ranges for blue-collar supervisor employees of the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills, 2019 to 2022. The notice of this ordinance above was published in the Daily Record and the official newspaper of Township of Parsippany Troy Hills on February 10, 2020. This ordinance was introduced at the February 2020 agenda meeting. Motion to accept the ordinance 2020:5 be heard in its second and final reading by title only.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. McCarthy, seconded by Ms. Grignani. Roll call, Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes.
Public hearing 2020:05, motion to open the public hearing on ordinance 2020:5.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Ms. Grignani. We'll give it to Ms. Peterson. Roll call, Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Okay,
See no one come forward. Motion to close the public hearing on ordinance 2020:05.
Is there a second?
Second.
motion made by Ms. McCarthy, seconded by Ms. Peterson. Roll call, Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy? Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Floor is
Whereas-
closed.
Whereas the above ordinance was read in title on the second reading and a hearing held thereon, now therefore be it resolved that said ordinance be passed on the final reading and that the notice of the final passage of said ordinance be published in the newspaper according to law. Motion to approve the resolution.
Motion made by Ms. McCarthy, seconded by Ms. Grignani. Roll call, Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Motion passes.
And Council President, just for the record, that ordinance that was just adopted correlates with item 1 on the consent agenda, which is the ratification of that contract for the blue-collar supervisors.
Yes, okay. Non-consent agenda, resolutions, 2020-065, appropriation transfer Motion to approve the resolution above.
Second.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Grignani, seconded by Ms. Peterson. Roll call, Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Resolution 2020-066, a resolution of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills authorizing budget appropriation reserves transfers. Motion to approve the above resolution made by myself.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Carriffy, seconded by Ms. McCarthy. Roll call, Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Be it resolved, all items listed with an asterisk are routine and non-controversial by the Township Council and will be approved in one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member so requests, in which case the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered in its normal sequence on the agenda. Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Peterson, seconded by Ms. McCarthy. Roll call, Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Approval of payroll and bills list. CFO Ancucci recommends authorization for the payment. 1, authorized payment of the February 21st, 2020 regular miscellaneous payroll estimated at $1,500,000. 2, payment of the bills for voucher list of 3/1/20 through 3/3/20, $3,448,840,888. Yeah, no. Motion to approve the authorization of the payment above.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. McCarthy, seconded by Mr. Carriffy. Roll call, Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Executive session. Whereas the Open Public Meetings Act, PL 1975, Chapter 231, permits the exclusion of the public from a meeting in certain circumstances, and whereas the Township Council is of the opinion that such circumstances presently exist, and whereas the Township Council wishes to discuss attorney-client privilege, hotel liquor license request, attorney-client privilege, NJHMFA pilot agreement. And whereas minutes will be kept, and once the matter involving the confidentiality of the above no longer requires confidentiality, the minutes can be made public. Now therefore be resolved by the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills that the public be excluded from this meeting. Motion to adjourn to a closed session.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Grignani, seconded by Mr. Carriffy. Roll call, Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
We're going
Mr.
to
Locke,
adjourn
do we
into closed session.
Do we anticipate anything, any
I'm not
voting?
anticipating any action, Mr. President.
Okay,
No
thank
action.
you. No action will be anticipated.
Right, we are back on the record.
Make a motion to reconvene.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Carriffy, seconded by Ms. Peterson. Roll call, Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Back in open session?
Make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Carriffy, seconded by Ms. McCarthy. Roll call, Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
We're adjourned. Have a good night.
Good night.
Everybody have a good night.
Oh, he's right.